He had to put together a kind of human puzzle. Hi, welcome to another episode of Criminalny Patrol. There is a place called Zimny Dół. It's near Olkus in Małopolska, and it was in this place that this story took place. It's a small town. I think a little over 700 people live there, so what happened there was definitely a shock for the people living there. Besides, the story is known throughout all of Poland. Because back when all of this was happening, everyone was talking about this story. It all started when for a long time neither the family nor the neighbors had seen Mr. Grzegorz, who lived in this town together with his wife Małgorzata, a 50-year-old woman. What happened to him? It was also during the COVID period. There were illnesses, so people naturally avoided each other. Those contacts were very limited, so it was natural that Mr. Grzegorz didn't go anywhere, didn't show up anywhere. And even though, let's say, the epidemic period officially ended somewhere around July 2023, there was still quite a lot of illnesses. And in general, I think that period is also over. Almost 2 years of COVID caused the bonds between people, even between families or neighbors, to loosen. And basically there were very few of those contacts afterwards.
If you like our channel and want to support the creation of new videos, click the support button or the link in the description below the video. Thank you.
Małgorzata and Grzegorz, they met somewhere in the 90s. Both of them worked at the hospital, with Małgorzata being a telephone operator and Grzegorz working as a security guard. They got married in 1995. They lived in Olkus for a while, and then they moved to this place called Zimno Dół. And there they had a house, well, rather modest. Small single story with a homemade terrace. Around that house there were thuja trees and a rainwater tank. Well, like I said, a modest house. But also the neighbors, well, they often saw them together because they would walk through the village together. Well, nobody had seen Grzegorz for quite some time. Finally, the neighbors got interested and asked Małgorzata what was going on. About Grzegorz, because they hadn't seen him. To which she replied that he was sick with COVID. That the illness was very severe, that he was actually in the hospital at that moment. And basically she was worried about him because even though Grzegorz wasn't old, he was 55 years old, but as you remember from that time, that was already considered a bit of an increased risk age. In addition, Grzegorz had various kinds of illnesses. He gained a lot of weight recently. Well, if you look at him from that period, he's a guy who weighs around 130 kilograms. So naturally he was in that higher risk group, and nobody was surprised that Grzegorz was basically nowhere to be seen. Well, since he was sick, since he's in the hospital, well, things could just go either way for him. So Grzesiek and Małgorzata had 2 sons. They lived with them, but well, fate was really hard on them. Darek, that's one of the sons. He got sick. It turned out he had tongue cancer. The boy was ill for a long time. Unfortunately, the disease turned out to be incurable. Darek died at just 22 years old. It was a real tragedy for them. And they took it really hard. Both of them always had a weakness for alcohol. There was quite a lot of alcohol in their lives. After Darek's death, there was even more drinking. And everyone knew that both Małgorzata and Grzegorz simply liked to drink. few years ago, Grzegorz and Małgorzata decided to renovate the house. They hired a contractor. But it turned out that the contractor simply made an impression on Małgorzata. It looked like she simply fell in love with the contractor. And then she decided that she would build her life with that contractor, the one from the house renovation. She threw Grzesiek out of the house. He then went to his brother who lives in the same village, and Grzegorz moved in with him. Of course, Grzegorz took it very hard. After all, his wife threw him out of the house. She moved in with her lover, and for him it was really a tragedy, but what can you do if that was her decision? So he just had to accept it. Goska moved in with the handyman. It lasted for some time. But it turned out that the love for the handyman just wasn't it. She started thinking about her husband again. After all, she had spent many years with him. And she broke up with the handyman. And she decided to go back to Grzegorz. She started calling him, persuading him. At first he didn't want to hear about it. He didn't want to go back to her. But after some time he decided that maybe he would forgive her. Maybe he would come back. And that's exactly what happened. Especially since he was just living at his brother's place. So it couldn't go on like that forever. He decided to forgive his wife, I think. He came back home. They moved back in together. People kind of laughed at the return of their love because they saw them together, walking around the village, holding hands, having a little vodka together somewhere. Well, it seemed a bit like teenagers experiencing their first love, but since that's how it was, then good for them. But the fact is that during that time, Grzegorz really started leaving the house less and less, avoiding both neighbors and family. Maybe it's because he was diagnosed with advanced diabetes. He weighed about 130 kilograms, so naturally he had trouble walking. He stayed at home more and more often. The neighbors saw him less and less. Besides, Grzegorz had always been sickly since childhood, as the neighbors say. His parents used to take him somewhere for some treatments in Zakopane. In fact, they never really knew what was wrong with him, because he had an illness somewhat similar to epilepsy, but no one knew exactly what it was or how the disease progressed. On the other hand, Małgorzata was seen very often. She walked around the village, went to the store, did some shopping, went to the office. She also worked. She was a cleaner in a neighboring village, so she was often seen around. It's possible that when Grzegorz started getting sick, when he practically didn't leave the house, Małgorzata came up with the idea that both of them should move in with his brother, this time with Tadeusz, and live there together. But the older brother understood that he would have not only his brother, but also his sister-in-law on his hands, that it would be a problem for him, so he simply didn't agree to it. And I think that's when Grzegorz also got a bit upset with his brother. He broke off contact with him, didn't answer the phone, and also said that they were watching him, that he couldn't do what he wanted, that he was somehow being supervised by the family. Yeah, that's apparently what he'd been telling people. Because of that, the family also wasn't really surprised that he was nowhere to be found. Some people felt sorry for him. Others held it against him that he broke off contact with them, but they also didn't really try to reach out to him. Because what's the point? If he took offense, then there's really no reason to try to reconnect with him. And that's how it went on for quite a while. Like I said, Małgorzata had been seen around lately, so I guess she was probably getting ready for some kind of renovation at home because she ordered building materials. presumably one of the neighbors notified the police. He just saw that there was freshly dug earth in Grzesiek and Małgorzate's garden. Well, it's a bit strange because it's February after all. Winters aren't what they used to be, but who digs in the garden in February? That surprised him. Well, officially, the reason for the police coming was that no one had seen Grzegorz for a long time, and for a few days Małgorzata hadn't really been seen either. What's more, there were usually 2 dogs running around their yard and those dogs were nowhere to be seen. Anything can happen. There are also often various kinds of poisonings, especially with carbon monoxide, so you never know. Because of this, the police were notified. Maybe something bad happened. The police officers arrived at the scene and started knocking on the door of the house, but no one answered. However, they decided to call the firefighters, and when the firefighters arrived, they started breaking down the door. When the police officers and firefighters entered the house, the first thing they noticed was the terrible stench and stuffiness inside. As the police officers said, it was simply unbearable. Inside it looked like something out of a horror movie. It was terrifying because there was mud everywhere throughout the entire house. It was as if someone had been walking around in muddy shoes and just spread dirt all over the house. And in the kitchen in the corner, Małgorzata was sitting. She wasn't moving, but she was alive. Next to her stood 2 dogs, also looking confused, scared, and emaciated. It looked like no one had fed them for a long time. Małgorzata seemed to be in some kind of stupor. The police officers started looking around the house, and on the kitchen table there was a note and there was something written on it. "I'm sorry for everything. I killed Grzesiek and buried him." It looked like everything happened on January 9th, 2024. So that was last year. Presumably that evening Grzesiek was either asleep or drunk. It's hard to say precisely today because the doctor wasn't able to do it. I mean the doctor who performed the autopsy. But it seems that when Grzesiek was unconscious, Małgorzata inflicted 2 knife wounds on him. So he was slowly bleeding out. He probably wasn't even aware that he was dying because the blood was slowly oozing out of him. Małgorzata herself says that she didn't intend to kill Grzesiek. She only wanted to scare him. That she didn't inflict those wounds on him while he was sleeping, but at a time when he was conscious. It's unlikely because Grzesiek was a big man. He weighed 130 kilograms. On top of that, he was powerfully built, so Małgorzata wouldn't have been able to hit him with blows that could cause his death, so it seems she was simply lying. All the more so because the expert stated that she is a person who manipulates others, that she presents herself in a different, better light than she really is. She probably intended to get rid of Grzesiek in this way. However, the problem arose at the moment when Grzegorz was already dead. Małgorzata was wondering what to do next. Małgorzata decided to wall her husband up in the bathroom. Do you remember I mentioned that she used to go around buying materials, ordering building supplies? Exactly, it was to wall her husband's body up in the bathroom. And she actually did it. She really had a lot of time because Grzegorz died on January 9th. The police dug him up in the garden because where the freshly dug earth was, that's exactly where Grzegorz was buried. But I have to say he wasn't buried whole, because those were body fragments. Małgorzata, after some time, came to the conclusion that this place, meaning the bathroom, wasn't a good place. That the police might find Grzesiek's body there, or that someone could even stumble upon it. It's also possible that she simply needed the bathroom. Because of that, she decided to hide the body somewhere else. She had no chance of transporting a body that weighed over 100 kilograms in one piece. So she decided to cut it into pieces and to carry it out in parts and to bury it in the garden, and indeed all of this took time. She had plenty of time. She cut it, carried it to the garden, there she buried it, she returned home. And so one by one, almost entirely so to speak, she brutally buried Grzegorz in the ground. I say almost because parts, fragments of his body were also found by the police throughout the house. A real horror, truly gruesome. So the doctor who performed the autopsy, to put it bluntly, had to put together a kind of human puzzle, which certainly wasn't easy for him either. Therefore, this cause of death is not so obvious either. It was not possible to determine with certainty how Grzegorz died, and what kind of injuries he had or what blows were inflicted. The court also had trouble determining how to classify what Małgorzata did. Was it murder or was it something else entirely? Some things just couldn't be explained here. One thing seems certain though. If Grzegorz had received help in time, he would have simply survived. So it wasn't a classic case of murder. So the circumstances that can't be explained are interpreted in favor of the suspect or the accused. That's what happened in this case as well. In the end, the court found that Małgorzata did not commit a serious crime, did not commit murder, and had no intention of killing Grzegorz. Therefore, there was no charge of murder in this case. What was Małgorzata's plan in doing all this? Why did she want to get rid of Grzegorz? Well, we don't know that. She herself doesn't say anything about it. She doesn't talk about it. Did she have something else planned? Was it some kind of, let's say, momentary impulse? You can't really say for sure. The fact is, she showed a lot of determination here. Because after all, the murder, then the fact that she walled up Grzegorz, then broke up the concrete where he was hidden, all of that really required a lot of determination, a lot of strength. She showed all of that. At the same time, she was logical because she kept walking around talking, telling people what was happening with Grzesiek, ordering building materials. So this case is not, I would say, so clear-cut. In the end, the court ruled that Małgorzata would be held responsible for causing serious bodily harm to Grzegorz, which resulted in his death. She was also charged with desecration of a corpse. She was sentenced to 8 years in prison. This verdict was reached recently on February 13th of this year, so as you can see, just a few months ago. We don't know if she will serve the full 8 years. She will certainly return to that town. And this is, I would say, a story that repeats itself because, after all, several hundred years ago, Mickiewicz wrote that it was what a terrible crime. A wife kills her husband. And that's exactly what happened there in Zimny Dół, where Małgorzata threw Grzegorz into a cold pit. And that's it for today's episode. Of course, subscribe to our channel and, of course, take care.
If you like our channel and want to support the creation of new videos, click the support button or the link in the description below the video. Thank you.